A hidden pregnancy, a grieving princess, and a moment that brought the world to its knees. Catherine's secret fourth pregnancy wasn't just unexpected. It was heartbreaking. As the truth unraveled, tears followed. What began in silence turned into one of the most emotional royal revelations we've ever seen. The shocking discovery that changed everything. It all started with a moment. No one expected a moment that would change everything behind palace walls. A royal aide, someone deeply trusted and close to the family, quietly walked into a private study in Windsor. What they saw left them frozen. Catherine, the Princess of Wales, was sitting alone, eyes red with tears, holding a folder marked confidential. Her hands were trembling inside that folder. Medical reports confirming what the public had no idea was coming. Catherine was pregnant with her fourth child. It was a secret so tightly kept not even the Queen's inner circle knew. And yet now it was exposed. The reaction behind closed doors was immediate. William, upon hearing the news, had leaked, reportedly rushed home early from a royal engagement, his face described by staff as a mix of shock, heartbreak, and fierce protectiveness, said it all. He wasn't angry that the world had found out. He was devastated that Catherine's peace had been shattered. "We were just trying to hold on to something for ourselves," he quietly told a friend. The world had been focused on her cancer battle, the chemotherapy, the frail appearances, the months of silence. No one could have imagined that in the middle of all that pain she was carrying a new life. For many it was a miracle, for others a mystery. But for Catherine and William it was a private hope they fought to protect until it was ripped into the spotlight. When the news reached the media, headlines exploded. Some called it brave, others said it was reckless. But royal watchers felt something else entirely: heartbreak mixed with all the idea that Catherine, already battling so much, had also been carrying this hidden child, stirred emotions across the globe. But how had she kept it secret, and why? The answers were just as emotional as the revelation itself. A pregnancy wrapped in silence. This wasn't just a secret pregnancy, it was a carefully guarded chapter of Catherine's life, known only to a few and carried in complete silence. Unlike her previous three, this time there were no press briefings, no early scans shared with royal doctors, no protocol planning. It was personal, it was quiet, and it was intentional. Sources close to the palace said Catherine herself made the call. "If this is the last time, I just want it to be ours," she reportedly told William one night in their kitchen. And so the world stayed in the dark. Even senior royals, including Queen Camilla, weren't told until the second trimester, once doctors confirmed it was safe to proceed. There were no flashy outfits to hint at a bump, no baby whispers from royal commentators. But something shifted during a rare public outing in Norfolk. Observers noticed Catherine's glow, not the kind that polished or staged. A softer presence, a tender hand resting over her coat. It wasn't much, but it sparked whispers online. Then, without warning or press build-up, a brief palace statement appeared. "The prince and princess are expecting. No due date, no fanfare, just one sentence enough to send shockwaves through royal circles and light up headlines around the world." Behind palace walls, Catherine spent most of her days in quiet. Tucked away in Adelaide Cottage, she rested near a sunlit window where she could watch the children play outside. Some days she was strong enough to join them, other days she simply watched, one hand over her growing belly, the other holding a prayer book. Insiders say she turned once again to the small comfort from her childhood: homemade curry from buckled Barry, soft old jumpers, and phone calls with her mum. Little moments that reminded her of who she was before the titles and expectations. Privately, she described this pregnancy as a sacred pause. But while the silence protected her heart, her body was about to go to war. Again. Because what came next was something she had battled before. And this time it came back stronger than ever. Catherine's battle with hyper-emphasis rabbit error again. Just when it seemed Catherine had found a small corner of peace, her body reminded her that peace wouldn't come easily. The moment her fourth pregnancy crashed into the next phase, the symptoms hit fast and worse than ever before. Hyperemphasis gravity are not just morning sickness. This was the kind of illness that left her unable to stand, unable to eat, sometimes even unable to speak. She was ghostly pale. "I've never seen her like that before," said one royal staffer who asked not to be named. There were days she couldn't lift her head off the pillow. The condition had haunted all three of her previous pregnancies, but this time was different. This time she was still recovering from chemotherapy, with her immune system already weakened and her body fragile from months of medication. Doctors were brought in daily, monitoring her vitals, checking her hydration, trying to keep her body stable. At one point, Catherine had lost so much weight so quickly staff were told to prepare for possible hospital admission. William refused to leave her side. He cancelled engagements, moved meetings online, and personally handled school drop-offs. He even asked for staff to be reduced inside their home, only the most trusted, so Catherine could feel completely safe. "We've always done things together," he reportedly told a friend. "But this time, I need to carry her through it." And he did. While Catherine lay in bed weak and often too ill to open her eyes, William sat beside her reading stories to the children. Some nights George would tiptoe into the room with a cup of water, whispering his mummy feeling better. Charlotte would draw little cards and tape them to her mother's side table, filled with hearts and stick figures holding hands. Behind the palace gates it was quiet, but inside Adelaide Cottage, the battle was loud every day, every hour. And still no one outside knew the full truth. The pressure of being both ill and invisible started to take its toll on Catherine emotionally. One aide revealed she cried often, not for herself, for her children, for missing their laughter, for being unable to hold them. Still she fought, through nausea, tears, and exhaustion. With soft lullabies and whispered affirmations, she knew that this child was coming into the world through fire. But she would walk through that fire if she had to. Yet as she clung to strength inside, the outside world began to sense something was shifting. A change in the royal rhythm, a pause in appearances, and a silence that hinted at something deeper. A family's quiet strength amid the storm. As Catherine faced the hardest physical battle of her life, her family quietly became her shield. Inside Adelaide Cottage, William took over completely: school runs, cooking dinners, comforting the children, and protecting their home from outside noise. He went from polished royal to hands-on dad, doing it all while Catherine stayed hidden, often too weak to move. The children understood more than anyone expected. George asked serious questions. Charlotte drew poems. Louis kissed Catherine's hand when she couldn't rise. When a Father's Day photo showed William and the kids on a beach without Catherine, fans were worried. But what they didn't know, what she took the photo lying just off camera, too fragile to join, but refusing to miss the moment. It was a silent symbol of resilience, love without spectacle. Catherine began to regain small sparks of strength, not through medicine alone, but through love, from her husband, her children, and the child inside her. As the world waited for updates, the Wales family gave something far more powerful: quiet strength. And as whispers grew louder, the truth finally came. And the public's reaction was nothing like anyone expected. The public reaction from criticism to compassion. The official pregnancy announcement was quiet, no fanfare, just one sentence from the palace: "The Prince and Princess of Wales are expecting a child." The internet exploded. Some questioned the timing: pregnancy after cancer. Too soon, too dangerous. Accusations flew. Headlines called it reckless. But then compassion took over. Mothers, survivors, strangers, Thousands shared stories. One wrote, "I had my baby after chemo. Kate gives me hope." Another said, "Let her have this." Doctors confirmed it was rare, but possible, safe with the right care. Catherine had chosen life, not risk. Letters poured into Kensington Palace. Prayers support love from around the world. "You don't owe us anything, just stay strong." William and Catherine finally spoke. "We are grateful for the kindness we are holding on to each other and to hope." That moment turned everything. People saw not royalty, but reality. A woman trying to survive, a family trying to stay whole. The media noise didn't stop, but the love got louder. And through that love, Catherine found strength. But behind the palace was one man was holding it all together, not as a prince, but as a father. William, a father before a prince. In the middle of the media storm, royal duties, and emotional exhaustion, Prince William made a quiet choice, one that spoke louder than any press release ever could. He became, before anything else, a dad. The polished heir, once groomed for kingship since birth, had disappeared from the spotlight, and in his place was something wrong, real, and completely human. A husband pushing strollers, a father wiping noses, and a man silently carrying a family on his back. Staff inside Adelaide Cottage noticed the shift instantly. William began waking earlier than usual, making toast, packing lunchboxes, reading bedtime stories. "Eight always been involved," one staff member said, but now he was doing everything. He was spotted several times at school pickups alone in a casual jacket, chatting with other parents. No bodyguards to close, no flashing lights, just William waiting outside the school gate, like any other dad. "I promised her I'd protect the kids from all this noise," he reportedly told a close friend. "So that's what I'm doing." When Catherine couldn't attend George's school performance due to her condition, William showed up quietly. He sat in the back, clapping proudly, gently guiding Charlotte down the school hallway afterward. Onlookers said his face looked tired but proud, determined. There were no press cameras, just a few blurry photos taken by parents who later said they were too moved to interrupt him. Privately, friends said this pregnancy brought back buried emotions for William. Memories of his own mother flooded in, the pressure, the pain, the absence. "I'm doing it differently," he confided once. "My children will always come first." That promise extended to the press when rumors began swirling about Catherine's condition again. Some tabloids pushing invasive questions. William snapped behind closed doors. He issued a clear warning to the media: "My children are not for sale. Respect their peace or you'll lose access permanently." It wasn't just a threat, it was a declaration. His family wasn't going to be the next royal soap opera. And the public respected that more than ever. People saw a new side of William, not the stiff royal at parades, but the man holding a bowl of soup while his wife lay sick in bed. The father sitting in the dark hallway waiting for his daughter to fall asleep. The husband standing between the woman he loves and a world that refused to let her heal in silence. In those weeks, William showed a different kind of power, not in speeches, not in photo ops, but in the way he stood up for his family calmly, fiercely, and without needing applause. And while Catherine was slowly regaining her strength, she knew one thing for sure. She didn't just marry a future king, she married a man who would carry the weight of the crown if it meant she could rest. But even with all his strength, nothing could protect Catherine from what came next, the emotional toll that would bring her to her most vulnerable moment yet. The emotional toll on Catherine. While the world argued over royal protocol, public timing, and baby speculation, something far more real was happening behind the scenes. Catherine was breaking down. The physical pain of the pregnancy was already more than most could bear, but it was the emotional weight, the isolation, the fear, the pressure to stay composed, that began to quietly crush her. One evening, long after the children had gone to bed, and the halls of Adelaide Cottage had fallen silent. Catherine sat alone at her writing desk or journal. Something she'd kept privately for years lay open. With trembling hands she scribbled a line that one aide would later find haunting. Some days I cry for strength, other days I cry in gratitude that I'm still here. There were moments she wept uncontrollably. Not for herself, but for George, Charlotte, and Louise. She hated that they had to see her like this, too weak to play, too ill to stand, too fragile to be their rock. They shouldn't have to see their mother like this, she whispered one night to William, who simply held her as she cried into his shoulder. Behind palace doors, the staff who had served the royal couple for years said they'd never seen Catherine so vulnerable. This was the same woman who had smiled through scandal, stood tall through pressure, and led a nation with quiet poise, and now she could barely hold a cup without shaking. But even in the darkness she clung to what she could. She returned to hypnobirthing, a practice that had helped her through her earlier pregnancies. In the mornings, she'd lie still with her headphones on, breathing deeply, trying to quiet her thoughts. In those moments it wasn't about being royal, it was about surviving. Catherine also found comfort in the simplest of things. Her favorite buckleberry curry, prepared by her mother and delivered quietly to Adelaide Cottage, became a small ritual, something warm, familiar, and full of childhood memories. She'd eat it in silence, often wrapped in the same blanket she'd kept since university. One aide recalled she didn't want attention, she didn't want pity. She just wanted to feel like herself again. And slowly she began to, not in grand ways, not overnight, but in tiny, quiet moments. A little smile when Louis brought her a daisy from the garden. A laugh when Charlotte did an impression of Granny Middleton, a hand resting on her belly as the baby kicked softer, strong still. Even as her strength returned, her heart stayed guarded. Catherine was always the calm, the composed, the one who never let her feelings show. But this pregnancy cracked that armor. And William saw it. She's carrying the weight of a world that doesn't know half of what she's going through, he reportedly told a friend. And then came a moment, unexpected, unscripted, that told the world more than any press statement ever could. The secret balcony exchange that said it all. Her hand gently resting near her stomach. To most she looked calm, poised, radiant, but to those watching closely something else was happening. As the crowd cheered and the national anthem rang out, Catherine turned her head just slightly and looked up at WM. It was quick, barely noticeable, but something passed between them. A glance, a half smile, a silent exchange that spoke louder than words. William leaned in just a little, his hand touched the small of her back. Protective, reassuring body language. Experts would later analyze that moment frame by frame. That wasn't protocol, one said. That was love, real love. Photographers caught it instantly. Within hours the image was everywhere. Headlines followed. Our mother's secret. The look that broke the monarchy's mask. Royal love without words. The public couldn't stop talking about it, not because it was flashy, but because it was real. For once the fairy tale wasn't in the crown or the ceremony. It was in a glance between two people just trying to get through the hardest chapter of their lives. An insider later revealed that Catherine was hesitant to even appear that day. Her strength was still fragile, but she wanted to show the public not everything, just enough to say, I'm still here, we're still fighting. And it worked. That image became iconic, not because of what it showed, but because of what it didn't. No baby announcement, no over-the-top emotion, just a moment of connection, a woman who had endured so much and the man standing beside her. We didn't need to say anything, William reportedly said later. The pictures said it all. It reminded the world that behind the royal titles, behind the palaces and protocols, was a mother, a father, and a family holding on to each other in the storm. And while the monarchy may be about tradition, rules, and bloodlines, in that moment, all that mattered was love. But the next chapter would shift everything again, because this pregnancy wasn't just a personal journey. It was about to reshape the future of the royal family in ways no one expected. What this means for the royal line. When Catherine's pregnancy was finally confirmed, most people were focused on her health, her strength, her emotional journey. But quietly and quickly questions began rising behind palace doors about something even bigger: the royal line. The future of the monarchy. The balance of power. Because this wasn't just a pregnancy. This was a game-changing shift in the order of succession. A fourth child would mean another heir to the throne, one who would now come before Prince Harry and his children. With just one birth, the entire dynamic of the royal line was being redrawn. And not everyone inside the palace was pleased. Sources close to senior courtiers revealed that Queen Camilla's reaction was far from warm. She looked rattled, one insider claimed, like she'd just been reminded of what the public really wants. And it isn't. Her reports whispered of growing discomfort in Clarence's house, fears that all the attention, all the public love would now shift even further toward William and Catherine's branch of the family, with King Charles, his health concerns quietly escalating, and talk of future abdication no longer just tabloid gossip. All eyes were already turning toward the Prince and Princess of Wales. And now another royal baby had only strengthened that focus. Royal analysts began weighing in. This child is more than just a baby, one expert said on air. It's a message that the future of the monarchy is rooted in youth, in modernity, and most of all, in Catherine and William. For the public, it felt clear a heart of the monarchy no longer lived in Buckingham Palace. It lived in Adelaide Cottage, among bedtime stories and school pickups, and the symbolism was powerful amid a royal family often divided by scandals, memoirs, and media games. This pregnancy represented something softer and far more powerful: quiet continuity, unshakable love, a family that hadn't just survived, but evolved. The press tried to twist it into a rivalry. Some headlines pitted Catherine against Camilla, William against Charles, the Wales children against the Sussexes, but royal watchers saw through it. They weren't watching a feud, they were watching a legacy being written in real time. Catherine didn't just bring another heir into the world, one royal insider said. She brought the monarchy closer to the people. This child, born in the shadows of illness and held in the arms of a mother who nearly gave everything, would grow up not just as a royal but as a living symbol of hope. And for the House of Windsor, hope is the one thing they cannot afford to lose. But perhaps the biggest impact of all wouldn't be political, it would be emotional, a legacy not of titles or crown jewels but of quiet resilience carved into history. The hardest of days. The legacy of quiet resilience. When the story of this pregnancy is one day told to